Edwin, you make such a good point that this is really a tactic that's tried and true with dictators, where they center themselves in the culture. And an image like putting himself as Jesus, I mean, that's really ritual humiliation of his most religious supporters, where they have to subjugate their faith and everything that they hold dear to defend what dear leader is doing. And that's a really disturbing place for us to be in as a country. But to your point, that's a shrinking minority of Americans who fall into that category. Even so many of the people who voted for him in 2024 are done with Trump.
Done with
You
him.
look at the numbers on this war with Iran, which seems to be what really got Trump all worked up, because the Pope, being a religious figure, being someone who would obviously advocate for peace, had the nerve to say, no, I don't think that a conflict like this is a just one. I think that, perhaps he didn't even say the words, but we can all say threatening to nuke Iran, threatening to bomb them back into the Stone Age, that's not a moral statement. That's not something that we want from our leaders. And all you have to do is look at the polling here in the US. These are devastating numbers on the war, and they are dragging Trump down.
Good. Now let me go back to this notion that his supporters, his supporters who have faith, have to somehow justify that image of him. It goes back to the big lie. If you can get people to tell lies for you, they know they're lies, but they're going to tell them anyway for you, then they've crossed a line for you that is hard to push back, because right then they have to admit it. So the big lie was one of them. And could he get people to parrot this thing that is patently untrue, that is proven untrue ever? And if they're willing to parrot that lie, then it's very hard for them to walk it back, because now they've put themselves at stake, right? And now he's gone bigger than American democracy. Are you willing to put all of your faith and call it a lie for me? Mm-hmm. All of it. And some number of people still will, but it's a declining number. And if they do it, they will die for him. No question.
Yeah.
Those of us who will build a democracy on their ashes will mourn their passing.
Well, let's talk about where we are at with the war with Iran. While Trump was at a UFC fight, talks with his esteemed...
Wait, just stop.
Yes.
Stop. Can you believe that? He and his Secretary of State went to a UFC fight while the most consequential negotiations of his presidency were going on halfway around the world, and he was too busy watching people punch each other and having a grand old time with, I might add, the Secretary of State, whose job it is, and he's also a national security advisor, right?
Because and the head of Venezuela as well.
Oh yes, and the head of Venezuela, right? They're all paying no attention. But so that tells me, Susan, that they sent J.D. Vance out there not to be successful.
Right.
They sent him the same way they sent Pence to a football game when he was vice president, and they did it twice, and to a Hamilton concert when he was a vice president, so that he could leave in the middle and just and make a statement. So Vance went, he spent 21 hours there, and then he left to make a statement. Oh, they weren't ready.
Right. He was also there with Jared Kushner, who has significant financial interests in the region and is in business with MBS, who has been one of the forces trying to egg Trump on in this conflict, along with Netanyahu. Right now, where are we at with all this, Edwin? I mean, it seems like we are no closer to peace. The Iranians are now facing a potential U.S.-led blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that we're going to see an escalation this week?
The entire world is desperate for this to be over. we do not have an alternative to what comes through those waterways, and that's true for for energy for the planet. It's true for oil and gas. It's what we use. We may not like it, but it's what we use. But it's also true for fertilizer. And we are about to be in planting season, and potentially a million lives depend on our being able to get those fertilizers to the fields where they need to be. But it's principally in Asia, but Americans don't want to be responsible for millions of deaths around the world. And Europe and Asia are all determined that this should end, and they're furious at the United States for closing the straits. They're furious at Iran for those straits were open before we did this.
Right.
So Russia and China are working together now to strengthen Iran. Right. This puts America in a tier, and our allies in NATO are saying, this is your mess. Don't drag us into it. I mean, when there's peace, they will help police the strait to make sure it stays peaceful, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't want to get in this war that we caused. And I mean, this is the biggest geopolitical fuck up that I can remember. And it's a disaster for the whole world. And it is going to be a forever stain on the United States that is going to hurt our relations. And NATO, I heard a NATO, one of the secretaries of NATO, not the boss, but one of the underlings there say, you know what, NATO's stronger than ever. We like the United States to be a big part of it, but we've stepped up. We're going to do what we need to do to protect Europe, at least, and we'll do it. So again, there they go. Donald Trump said, you'll die without us, and they said, good riddance.
Well, I mean, let's go back to the beginning of this conflict. Nobody in the administration could give us a consistent reason for why they were going into Iran in the first place. And so now, as Trump does want to disentangle us from this, what are the objectives to get out? Besides him tweeting that I've won and, all glorious victory is because of me, what is it that we need to get out of this for peace? Because right now, by the looks of it, you have Iran that has closed the strait effectively, which was not the case before the conflict. They have sanctions that we had slapped on them that were lifted because Donald Trump is terrified of oil prices going even higher. The Russians have come out very well because sanctions against them for energy have been lifted. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of winners here, but we are not among them.
Who has Donald Trump not yet betrayed? Let's see. He betrayed the American people. He gave a State of the Union message while he was planning on going to war and didn't bother to tell us. We don't count. We don't matter. Cannon fodder. He betrayed the soldiers that have already died. Many of them in what we now know was completely unprotected position. He betrayed our allies in Europe and Asia by closing the strait that they need for their energy, driving up costs for them everywhere without so much as a heads up, this is what we're doing and why. Mm-hmm. He betrayed the Iranian people who were, at his request earlier, in the streets saying, we want a different government. And they now have the same government, only stronger, right?
And many of them have died.
And many were murdered. And it looks as if he is betraying his good pal, Bibi Netanyahu, too, by cutting and running as he must, because he can't invade and conquer Iran while they still have their nuclear material. So, so there is no one the man won't betray. And he is, really in the whole world, he's betrayed almost everybody.
Yes. And as this is going on, Trump approaches the presidency with the seriousness that he always has by going to a UFC fight and posting AI photos of him as Jesus. That's really what we deserve as Americans for our leader.
Yeah. And by the way, I mentioned that he betrayed Bibi. That doesn't mean, because every time in that part of the world, you think, well, if you're if you're betraying Bibi, then you have to be for Palestine. If you're for Palestine, you have to be against Israel. That's not Donald Trump. He's certainly betrayed everyone in Gaza who he
Yeah.
said he was going to by now would be a paradise, right? So he's betrayed everybody, everybody.